Hi, can everyone hear me okay? I normally don't need a microphone, but I'll use it today because we're recording this session for anybody who couldn't make it today. So so forgive me for being informal and using a microphone, but welcome everybody. I'm Vanessa Rhodes. I am the Business Development Officer from Council. Welcome to our procurement workshop. So today is the very last of our October Business Month festivities that we've been running for the last 4 weeks. We have, as a part of our Succeeding Tweed program at Tweed Shire Council, been running a whole bunch, 15 in fact, workshops, events, networking, all sorts of things. There's a lot of familiar faces here. A lot of people have come to a lot of them, which is great to see. So today is the last, the big one. So we're very excited to finish off the big month with a bang. But firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Bundjalung people. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. My pronunciation of these ones aren't so great, so I try not to mess that up too badly. Now, first and foremost, I'd like to introduce you to our staff who we have here today. We have Evonne Shaffer, who is presenting today, and she is our Coordinator of Contracts at Tweed Shire Council. We also have Sian Booth-Ford, who's a Procurement Officer, sitting next to her today of contracts, and Emily Riddle at the back there. Emily's just on standby to do the last minute dash downstairs to see if we have any latecomers coming in. I'm just going to turn this off here. So we are amongst royalty today, which is great. So I will shortly let Evonne do her thing, but just a bit of housekeeping. Toilets straight down the hallway to your left, ladies and men's down there. There's tea and coffee outside here. Feel free during the session if you just want to pop out and grab a cuppa and come back in again. We're going to be very informal today. This is all about learning, all about asking questions. So Evonne will be presenting today, and she will tell you about how it's all going to roll. But basically, we might save all the questions to last, and then it's just an open forum to ask whatever you would like of the team. So we want to keep it nice and cash, not too serious. What else? And of course, finally, just the recording. So it is going to be recorded today. If you don't mind, later on when we do question and answer time, if I'm going to bring you the microphone or use one of those Google ones that you've got on your desk there, that means that the recording goes onto the Teams system so we can share your questions with people afterwards. If you don't want to be recorded, just either tell me or don't ask a question, ask it later and I can sort it out. So other than that, I think we're all pretty much good to go. There is a contact list at the back. Some of the feedback we have been receiving over the last month is that these sorts of events are a fantastic way to not only learn about council and our services, but also to connect with other people in the room. So sometimes we have the big tier 1, tier 2 contractors in the room, and they're looking for local suppliers. They're looking for someone, if they're going to get these contracts, who can I use that's a local supplier? So very early in the piece, we learnt that sharing details, if you're up for that, put your name on the register at the back and we will share your details with whoever is in the room today. It's a really good way of keeping the connections going, and we've had some really successful relationship building over the last 4 weeks of doing this, which is great. So if you'd like it to be shared amongst people in the room, feel free to write your details on the back there. Otherwise, I will hand over to Evonne and the team.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to run through what we see as doing business with council, and hopefully this helps you and moving forward. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk a little bit about the background policy and procedures to help you understand why we do what we do, how to do business with us, our tender process and how tenders are assessed. I'm going to run through some tender schedule examples. We're going to get to sustainable procurement, which is, the way that we're heading for the future, and, they will impact tenders submitted and what you submit in this space. Our new tender portal and some future work, and then feedback and questions for you guys to ask us anything you like about anything we've discussed today, or might be something else that we haven't discussed today. So, yeah. Okay, so council background policy and procedures. So we are bound by the Local Government Regulation and the Local Government Act. And I'm not going to run over a huge overview into that, apart from that for work over 250, we need to go out to the open market and we need to do that for a 21-day period. And there's a whole heap of other things in there as well that we have to abide to, but they're kind of the most important ones that would make sense to you guys as well. And procurement, and then we're also bound by our own procurement policy and protocol, which is in accordance with the legislation, and it covers how we must procure all work. All work over 250, and then also all work under 250, which isn't covered by the regulation and working guidelines for doing so. So some of the main items in there are, ethical behaviour, acting with integrity, being fair and honest in all our dealings, making sure conflict of interests are declared, our business ethics policy, and our local preference policy. So they are pretty important with doing business with us. So I'm going to run through the business ethics policy. So this policy kind of outlines councillors and anyone conducting business with council, the behavioural standards that we expect to be exhibited, code of conduct, and it also includes declaring conflict of interest. For anyone conducting business with council, they must agree to abide by the business ethics policy. So it should be in all the tender documents that come out. And I thought an important point to note here was this includes not canvassing councillors about work. So if we've got a tender that's going to council meeting and you've discussed it with a councillor before that, during that process, before we've awarded, you could be disqualified from the tender process. So that's a really important, and people have done that in the past, and then we had to disqualify their tender on that basis. So you can't talk to councillors about tenders going to council. Okay, so and the local preference policy, this is important for anybody that's local really. For tenders over 100k, you can gain a good advantage for yourself. So we have it's quite a complicated scoring process, but if you're in the Tweed Shire or adjacent shires, then you can qualify for a bit of an advantage in the tender process. And as long as your business address is within the Tweed Shire or adjacent shires. So, work under 100k, councils for work under 100k, our policy kind of mentions that we need to get at least one quote from a business in the Tweed Shire. So that's a bit of background. I'm just going to take you to, so you can find these documents, and this is the tender and contracts page when you go into the Tweed Shire Council website. So we are going into a new tender portal, which I'm going to get into shortly, and we're going to be rejigging this page a little bit. So, but all that the business ethics policy, the procurement policy, they will all be on this page when you go in to register and view current tenders. Okay, so how do you do business with us? So really the main thing to do is registering on the Tweed Shire Council website for tenders, just where I was then, and we'll just go back a little bit one. So when you come into the website, hang on. When you first come, type in your Tweed Shire Council, this page will open. There's a couple of ways you can get there. You can get there through development and business, tenders and contracts, or you can click on tenders and contracts here, and that will take you to that page I just showed you. So, and we're trying to explore how we get local people involved, and that's a big priority for council, is having local businesses help us complete the work that we need to do. So there's also, so what we're going to be doing in the near future, and these will be going out in the new year, so we're doing a trade panel of providers. So we'll be going out to the market and asking for people to submit. That will be for pretty much most trades: painting, plumbing, electrical work, and and that just to give us, this is a common problem we have within council, we have to abide by our procurement policy, so often we have to get 3 quotes, and you know, you can cold call from the phone book, or it's just from people that we know that have done work for us. So this will give us an opportunity for a whole bunch of new people to submit, and submit their rates as part of that. We're doing the same thing for the consultant panel as well. That will be issued in the new year as well. We've had consultant panels in the past and they haven't worked well because we haven't had a lot of local providers tender for it. So we're hoping to turn this around this time, and really we'd love to hear from you if you're a consultant, and we'd love you to submit a tender. So we're not going to go through all the disciplines, but civil engineers, structural engineers, hydraulic consultants, so that's kind of what we're looking for, that we'll be asking for on that. So I think last time we went out for that, we went out with like 30 or 40 categories, and I think that was a little bit detrimental to the process, so we're going to keep it a bit simpler this time. There's also a tender coming out fairly soon for the holiday parks, which is a little bit of a different business entity. It's set up a little bit differently, still part of Tweed Council, but that will be a trade panel of providers as well. And then we have a whole bunch of plant hire contracts. So if you have machinery and you want to work in this space, I'll get to a little bit more into that in a little bit. And so we do this, and then we have our invited quote system. So if we don't know you and you've never worked with us before, you won't get invited for those quotes, because we don't, we just haven't had any exposure. So it's a really good idea to talk to us. There's an admin email, send an email, let us know what you do, and register for the council website. Okay, so the plant hire contracts, we've got a whole heap of plant hire. I'm not going to run through them all, but that's most of them there, and we're going to go back out to the market in late January with all of these. So these contracts have been working on a 1-year basis, and then they've had a couple of renewals, and we're at the end of the renewals now, which are usually 12 months as well. So, if you register on the portal, you'll get notification of those. Okay. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the tender process and how it works. So to give you a little bit of perspective on what we do. The first thing we do when tenders are submitted is we assess the offer as conforming or non-conforming, and it's pretty important to put in some good paperwork, and I'll run through some tender schedules shortly. Before tenders close, we have to do an offer evaluation plan, which sets the criteria for assessing those tenders. So, and this, so it's a price and non-price criteria. So it could be 10% price and 30% non-price. So often that particular quality, or where price isn't the most important thing, or we're chasing someone with particular skills, then we'll weight it more heavily to non-price rather than price. So, and 10% local content is mandatory from our procurement protocol. We have usually three panel members, could be more. And, you know, non-price criteria may include things like company experience, your company's capability, the program you submitted, and sustainability aspects. I'm going to really talk a little bit more about sustainability because we're heading that way. It's a way of the future, and that's what we want to achieve for next generations. So very soon we're also going to have a 5% mandatory sustainability criteria. So I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail shortly. So the next thing we do is evaluate offers. And this includes any assessment of qualifications and departures, prepare recommendations and obtain approval from the delegated person. So we have, everybody at council has a financial delegation. So, and up to our general manager can approve items up to 1 million, and then it has to go to council meeting for approval. So that's kind of standard process. And then once either of those approvals have occurred, then we issue a letter of award or a contract exchange. So that's the process that happens after you've submitted a tender. And we'll also let unsuccessful bidders know that they, if they haven't won the tender. Okay, completing tender schedules. So some really helpful hints for us, which makes it easier for us: submitting one PDF document, no zip files, and make sure you sign each tender schedule. And, you know, excessive qualifications and departures could place you out of the race. So, you know, that if you're going to, and that's what we have, that's part of our policy too. You know, submit an all-inclusive price, be concise with your documentation. So tender schedules, you know, the offer form and the price schedule, of course, they're the two most important things, and signing your schedules is what's going to make your tender conforming. If you don't do that, then your tender could be deemed non-conforming, and then you won't be considered further. I'm just going to run through some tender schedules. Okay, so this is, you know, standard offer schedule. So, you know, filling this in, putting your contract price in here is super important. If you don't do this, you know, we could deem it non-conforming. And that will come from your schedule of rates. And that could be either a little table that's in here, or it could be an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm just going to run down. So this one in particular refers back to an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so that could be, and you know, and then you'd be filling in the items for all that. And this is a little bit of a more complicated job. So usually they are more simpler than this, and that's what you submit as your price. Okay, and then make sure you sign the tender schedule in the main suite of in the suite of schedules. Experience and capability. You know, if you haven't done work for us before, it's really important here to showcase your abilities and also put in some previous jobs that you've done, references. And now I'm just going to go down to, and there are a few other schedules. I'm not going to run through all of them. But program is probably another one that we assess that often falls in the non-price criteria. So, for bigger jobs, this can be Gantt charts, or it can just be simple showing us a task, how long the work's going to be. Your company insurance details, that's pretty self-explanatory. And so the schedule of local content, are you a registered business in the Tweed Shire? It's yes. And are you in the neighbouring shires? And make sure you sign the tender form. And then sustainable procurement, and I'm going to get into this in a little bit more detail, because a question we often get asked is, how do we fill this in? What are you expecting here? And that's what I'm going to run through shortly. So probably about a year ago, Council undertook a whole heap of heat map workshops to try and best work out our areas of highest risk. And these areas of highest risk, and we identified 4 key areas, and one was construction and consultancies, and so another one was maintenance. So these schedules will differ slightly, but this is kind of what they look like, and where your response is in, and you'd place your response, in the schedules. And then schedule of business ethics, what I spoke about earlier, you need to make sure you sign this one. So that's a little bit about the key schedules and what we look for. Okay, so sustainable procurement at Tweed. The schedule I just showed you is fairly new, and so it's not been implemented in all our contracts, but in the near future it should be. And, you might be asking, what is sustainable procurement? And so, it falls into kind of 4 key areas. One is economic, cost value for money, and the economic impact of the purchase. Environmental, the whole of life environmental impact, the manufacture, the transport, recyclability, the social and ethical implications, and governance, which, considers legislation. So Tweed, what we've done, we've identified the most relevant sustainability risks and opportunities, and so we've tailored 3 to 5 questions to the purchases, the schedule I showed you earlier, and and we target areas of waste reduction, pollution threats, emissions reduction, diversity and inclusion, modern slavery, work health and safety. So, obviously waste reduction is about, recycled components or recycled materials, pollution threats, managing the use of materials and manufacturing processes to avoid pollution. And I'll leave, and then diversity and inclusion, how you support diversity and inclusion into the workforce, and modern slavery, which is really big. The government has recently just passed some important legislation on modern slavery, and you might be asking, what that is, and that could be, companies using overseas labour, they're not getting award wages, they're still in our country, but it's still considered modern slavery. And work health and safety. And that's policies and practices to ensure your safety throughout your supply chain. So then how do we evaluate? So items you put in there that will become a 5% compulsory item and scoring when you submit a tender. And if you don't put anything in there, you'll get 0, obviously. 1 to 20, you have aspirational or generic targets, but there's a lack of evidence or detail. And so this is kind of, I'm not going to run through all of them, but a really good score will be you've got plans in place, you've implemented those plans to address sustainability measures, and that might be things like your supplier for all your amenities is all recycled materials, something like that along those lines. So that's kind of, getting into that detail will get you extra points when you want to win a tender. So that's about it about sustainability. I'll leave this up on the screen at the end, and this is, if you could, we'd really appreciate your feedback in relation to sustainability and how we go out to the market and what we present in our tenders as well. So I'll leave this up, and if you could respond to this, that'd be fantastic. So, we just want to know what we've got in the tenders at the moment, how you feel about them. Are they simple to understand? Do you know how to address them? And do our criteria allow your businesses to show where you're already addressing sustainability? Okay. So our new tender portal, I probably will start with going back to registered tenders. Okay, so when you go into our portal at the moment and you go to tenders and contracts, you'll register to view, you'll register and view current tenders, and that will take you, this is our current portal. I strongly suggest, if you're not registered yet, to do it, even though we're moving to a new portal, that you register now, because we're going to be sending people who have registered information about the new portal only if you're. So I strongly suggest you still do this process. Log on, register, and register here. So it's really simple. It's not very difficult. It's just a few details, and then you'll be registered in the system. So when we move to the new portal, everyone who's a registered supplier will get an email about the changes and workshops we're going to have about that new portal as well. Okay, so the new tender portal is going to be available on the 2nd of December 2024, and we're just going to take this opportunity to give a few demos about that. So there's the tenderer portal. If you haven't won work with us before, you'll remain as a tenderer. Once you're engaged to do work, then you become a supplier. And then we're going to run through how that looks in the new portal in submitting a tender. So I'm just going to, we're going to start with the tenderer portal, and I'm going to hand you over to Sian. Okay.
Hi everyone. So as Evonne said, we'll have some comms that will go out to you if you're already a registered supplier on our eProcure portal. Probably the only thing that's different with this process is that when you're going to come and log in with your new details, we're going to have a two-factor authentication. So it's still a work in progress, but depending on what our IT department says, it will either be email verification, phone, so your phone number verification with a code, or you'll have to download an app, which will be the Microsoft app for you to go in and register via 2FA. So what it will look like for suppliers who haven't won work with council yet will just be once you've registered and you've logged in, this will be what the face looks like. So we've got all of our different apps here. We're going to have some user guides for you guys to use, probably in PDF format, and also a couple of pretty short videos just to run you through the process if you need to use those. So the My Organisation Details app in here, once you've registered all of your details and you need to update them, you can come into this section here and you can just click on edit, and at any time you can update your address details. You can add any additional contacts. So the primary user is going to be the person who has the admin access to all of the features. So they can submit tenders, they can update details. If you've got, say, additional staff, so site supervisors, any other staff that you want to add, you can click on this add button. You can add in their details, and then all of their info will show up here. So just to link them to your company. We have a categorization system here. So what's going to happen is that any open tenders that go out to market, your businesses can come into this area and you can categorize your business. So you can click on add, and in the back here we have our Tweed Shire Council sourcing categories. And then we just have a list of categories that you can add to your business. So when we have a tender that goes out to the market, you can register to that category, and if it's relevant to your business, you will get an email letting you know that that tender is available.
Yeah, so that's probably better instead of a blanket list that goes out every time, which is happening now. Every time a tender gets released, you'll get that. So we've incorporated that into the new system.
Yeah. Non-mandatory as well, but we also have a company logo section, so you can add a logo to your company and it will show up here in your profile. So next to the My Organisation Details app is the tenders and offers section. So this will be the list of current tenders and offers that we have available to you. So they're going to look like this. I don't know how many of you are already registered with our portal in eProcure. It's a very different look and feel, but it's basically all the same information. So we're going to have our tendering number, our tendering title, and then we're just going to have some additional information about the scope of the work. So you can click on the view button to come in and view the details of the tender. So some important things to note is the date down the bottom here. So we've got the closing time and date. So obviously, like any other tendering portal, once that closing date and time has passed, you won't be able to access the tender anymore or submit. So we've got all of our documents down in the attachment section. So as we usually operate, we'll have our offer document sitting in here for you. We'll have our schedules in Word, so you can fill those out. As Evonne touched on, if we've got a more complicated job that needs an Excel sheet that we want you to respond to, we'll also attach that. Any attachments and appendices will also be included, so you can just click on the button here and then download each of those documents so you can respond to them. We're also going to have an addendum section, so any addendums that you have to respond to will show up in this list. They'll be available to all of you if you haven't registered for the tender, but if you have previously downloaded the documents, you will be notified by email that those addendums are sitting there. So also, like eProcure, we've got a questions feature, so if you have any questions or clarifications, you can ask it through here. Our project manager working on the tender will receive an email that you've asked a question. They can either link that to an addendum if it needs to be issued as an addendum, or they can respond to you personally through that area. So that's basically all the features of the portal. When you're ready to submit your tender, you can come to the submissions area. You can click on the add button here. You can add in any comments that you want. The only details that you need to fill out in this section are anything that have a red asterisk next to them. So if it doesn't, you can just leave that. You can click on save. So we have a submission details area here. So basically, if we have a contract that's out and we're asking for a lump sum, you can respond to this. So we've got a bunch of different, goods or services, or however you wanted to respond, and just so you know that the submission is inclusive, so you can add in a submission amount If it's not a lump sum that we're asking for, you can also click on schedule of rates provided in attachments, and that's what we'll be referring to as your submission. So once you've clicked on save, you can add all of your attachments to the attachments area. So your schedules that you're responding to, you can just pop any documents in there that you want, click on OK, and then upload them. So you can either add your attachments together in one PDF, or you can add separate attachments depending on what their what their sizes and what their file types are. And then once you're ready to submit, you can submit that. So at any time before the tender closes, if you either wanted to add additional information or just withdraw the submission for whatever reason, you can click on this, and then everything becomes editable. So you can add documents, you can remove or delete, and then you can resubmit if you choose to. So that's basically what you see as a tenderer. I'll just quickly run through what you guys will see as a submitter. So one of the reasons that we are moving to the new tendering portal is because we're going to have integration between our contracts module, our procurement module, and our finance module. And that all speaks to this module here, your supplier portal that you're all operating through. So just 2 seconds. Just share my screen. Yep. So if you've submitted through council and you've been awarded a tender, when you come to your login page, you're going to see this a little bit different to what you're used to in eProcure, because it's speaking to all of the different modules that we now have at council. What's it doing? Oh, sorry guys. So you can log in to the portal here. If you have been awarded any contracts, you can click on this contract section here. If you've got multiple contracts with council, they're just going to show up in this list here. So it just gives you basic information relating to that contract that you have with council. Once the contract is finished and it's been closed, it will switch from approved to closed. You can also filter, by all of those contracts if you've got a few with council and you wanted to look back at historical data. If you have a supplier contract with council, we've also got a purchase orders list. So any purchase orders that you have active with council, you'll be able to come into this app as well and view the list of them. No, so training isn't one of the categories, but if you're supplying services, I'd say that a relevant category to you would be supply. Yeah. Yeah, we have them. It's a very small list and it's very broad. But I mean, if we had very, very specific categories like that, you wouldn't be notified of much work. So it's just, to kind of really drill down into it, we just tried to keep them as high level and as simple as possible.
Yeah, but that is something we can consider. So
yeah, we can. I mean, if you wanted to contact us with suggestions, you feel like none of those actually represent your business and you wanted a category that specifically represented yours, it's all maintained lists in the background that we can add that into. So yeah, we're open to suggestion. It's just a list that we've used for a while. So yeah. All right. Sorry, guys. Okay.
We want to keep going.
Oh, you can ask questions. That's fine. Yeah.
So I just seen a project pop up, but we didn't apply it through with the council. It happened to be on another platform like Evonne, Estimate One.
Yeah.
Are you advertising on both? Like, is that sort of sync together?
No. So are you guys currently registered on our tendering?
No,
You're not.
no,
Okay.
yeah.
No, that's right. So what we're doing at the moment is that anybody who is a creditor with council or is obviously a supplier on our eProcure website, we've been sending out comms just letting people know when the shutdown dates are and what's going to be happening. So we do have a clear cutoff date. So the last tender on eProcure is going to be advertised on the 27th, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Closing on the 27th.
Closing on the 27th. So you're still going to be able to have access to all of those tenders that are available on that website. But then from the 2nd, we're no longer using eProcure, and then that's when we'll be coming over to this system. So there is a hard cutoff date. But yeah, like Evonne suggested, even though we're going to be moving over to that new system soon, I'd highly recommend that you go and register on eProcure just so you can receive that comms and you'll know when we're moving over. Yeah, we're back on. Good. Okay.
We'll get to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Is there someone else who wanted a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, just turn it on and it'll turn red and off you go.
Yeah.
That like a guideline for us to go up and quoting for a tender?
Yeah, if we've included that Excel spreadsheet, then we expect you to respond that way. And the reason we do that is, so we can compare apples to apples. So, you might not schedule your work particularly that way. So you might put your, and this is what often happens, I'll just pull it.
Hang on, I'll stop sharing. Yeah.
So, I'll go back
So
here.
can we just repeat that question again, because we didn't quite get on the mic for the recording so everyone can hear it later.
Oh,
And then
That pricing schedule you brought up before, was that just an example?
It's
Was that
just an example, yeah.
Online for us to go? Yeah.
Yeah, oh, sorry, let me repeat it. I'm sorry, yeah, so that every job's going to be a little bit different, depending if it's a building job, depending if it's a civil job. But, and you might not actually get your prices this particular way. So, you might choose like a relevant one and then just put, include it there, and you price some other components in a more general category. We just don't like the whole thing to be included because we want to allow, but we do understand that that's not necessarily the way you might get your prices, so you might have to do that, yeah.
Evonne, will there be like a pretend or an example of how you could, because for people who've never done tendering before, it can be really tricky. Will there be any sort of like a reference material or something to say, hey, this is an example of how you can go about filling your schedules? Or
We haven't got one at the moment, but if people request it, we could possibly do that. So going back to the website, that's something we could put on the website on how an example.
would you guys find that useful if that was a resource to use for people who haven't necessarily done tendering before? It can be a bit daunting, we're happy to run some workshops and things like that, but even if there's a reference document to say, hey, example, this is how you fill it in, would that be something that would be useful for the business community? Yeah.
And where did we find that example again?
Yeah, so we don't have one yet, so that's something we'd have to develop.
Yeah.
So, but, that's what we're here for, to hear what you guys have to say and what would help you guys, and, we'd like to make it easier, so I'm just going back to the,
Because I think the point is we're really trying to make it as user-friendly and accessible for everybody, not just the big guys with the staff who know this day in, day out. We want to give everyone an opportunity to bid for this work and make it a bit more equitable, and local business as well. Small guys, give them a chance to pop their hat in the ring. So if you need more support to do that, we're happy, as Evonne said, to do, the example pages or do a workshop, for example, or something like that. So please come to us with your feedback about how we can assist you to make sure that you're, proceeding in this area and you're doing the right thing. Because what we don't want you to do is not get right and go, oh, never do it again, and give up. So we don't want that. We want you to make sure that you're supported and give it a crack and go and ask for the feedback. If you don't get the first time, get the feedback, and let's work on how we can get it going for you next time.
so, like I said earlier, we're going to rejig this page a little bit, which is going to be like, we really don't feel that we need to have all of this in there, and we could put an example tender, have a few icons It will also have the videos and user guides on this first page. And what we'll also have is a list of current tenders, so you don't have to go all the way through to log in. You can just see if you want to have a quick look what's out at the moment, you can do that as well. So that'll be a table that sits in here. So we're working on that at the moment, ready to go live on the 2nd of December. Yeah. That's a really good point, and that is something that we could easily do, and just put a sample tender on there and yeah. So thanks. Okay, I'll go back to Sian.
Sian, you write more questions, or you want to keep going with your presentation?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, are there more? Yeah.
This will be a good question, because I'm really looking at a different perspective from what you've been talking about when you're talking about construction. I'm looking at the plan here around social wellbeing, and I'm just wondering if there's any sort of system in place for tendering for something that's addressing social wellbeing, particularly for young people, where we've got real issues with crime and drugs and a whole range of things. Just for example, we've started a new table tennis club here in Tweed. We've run gala days for the schools where we had 80 students. We're looking at running 5 in March. And this is around educating the kids to, for example, put a table tennis bat in their hand instead of the phone, because the statistics on youth, depression, suicide, anxiety is staggering. And money's put into drugs, but we don't give kids another coping strategy which would allow them to move away from what they decided to use. So I'm just wondering in the tendering whether social wellbeing is even an aspect that you're looking at.
And we haven't considered it in the tendering, but whether we need to consider it elsewhere in the business and how we communicate that information, we can try and get it up, because if it's not related to a tender and submitting a price.
Well, even if we approved it to the tender, I think we were looking at education.
Yeah.
And I guess the gentleman beside me sort of asked what we had as far as training and education.
That
So-
could be a category that we had, training and education. So
Right.
yeah, that's a good stuff. And definitely look at that.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just mindful of time, but I'll just, we don't have an example up here, but like I said, if we do have, if you have a supply contract with council and you have any purchase orders that are active with us, it's going to show up in this purchase order list here. So, yeah. We've also got a section where you can add your qualifications.
You can't see it,
You said that the IT issues are with you, but they were me, hey?
Let's see where.
Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, so we've got a qualifications area where you can add in qualifications to the system. You can add in what the type is. So we've got a list of types here that you can choose from. And you can also add in a qualification end date and add any attachments to this area as well, just so we can, monitor any, any insurances that might expire. So then we can chase you up for those. If you have a contract with us that's a claims contract, you can also view your active claims here with us too. So there's a couple of different statuses that are applied to these. So if you have a claim that's been submitted with council, it's being assessed, it will be in draft status, and then once it's been approved, it will let you know that it's going to be approved and paid. So it gives you a list of all of the current claims that you have with council and against what contract as well in this area too. And then like the tender portal as well, you can also view tenders and offers in this area, and then you could submit against any works that you wish to in the future. So yeah, that's basically it from me. If anyone had any other questions in regards to the tendering portal, I'd be happy to answer them. Did you want to speak about, yeah?
Yeah.
Or did you have that up on your screen?
Yes, I think that's we just wanted to give you an idea of what it's going to look like, and obviously we're going to send out the correspondence about some additional training about the tender portal as well.
So our website that collates all of our tenders. Did you want to come up and we can kind of
no, we're not finished yet. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah. So just moving on to the next. Council, we have a lot of we've got $1 billion worth of projects over the next 5 years, and like the most current one at the moment is a new works depot where we've gone through an expressions of interest process, and we're probably going to award that contract mid-November. So that's quite a large project, and then if you're interested in doing subcontract work for the head contractor, then you could notify us and request who won the contract. So then you can approach them to do work on that job. So we don't mind people doing that. So you can do that. We've got Kings Forest Sports Fields, Harryville Dam raising, Hastings Point and Mooloolaba wastewater treatment plant upgrades, Tweed Coast Road, dual lane carriageway. So that's going from the Goodwin Lights back to the highway, and that's dual lane on both sides. And Tweed Regional Indoor Sports Centre. So that's just a few of them. And then there'll be a lot of minor works as well that make up that $1 billion. So yeah.
Can I just ask you a question about the Tweed Regional Indoor Sports Complex?
Yes.
Are they going to include an aquatic centre or an Olympic pool in that?
And yes, that's the plan. But however, it's only at very preliminary stages at the moment.
Right.
And, we have to identify a site first. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. So, we're just doing some feasibility assessments now about a possible site and where that would be. So, yeah. Yeah. So it will be a few years away, but that's where we're up to. Okay. So, just before we move to feedback and questions, we also have Felissima, is that correct? Yeah, Felissima here from Regional Development Australia. And I'll let you talk about what they do.
Hi everyone, my name's Felice. I'm from Regional Development Australia, Northern Rivers. I guess just relevant to the tender portal that the procurement team has been talking about, we've got a website called livenorthernrivers.com.au, and if you go to that, there's a aggregation of all the tenders across the 7 local government area councils in the region, so going from Grafton all the way up to Tweed. So if you're someone that looks at tenders across the region and can go up and down the coast and out to Lismore, Kyogle, Casino, this is a summary of the tenders that are coming from all the councils. It also covers New South Wales Government, so it has things like, public works stuff, Department of Education, if there's session things that are relevant to it's mostly about local, but if it's like, pavements out in Penrith, then that's not going to appear on our summary, but we'll have all the local stuff. So I've got some flyers here. Please go on. And basically, once you get on there, there's no registration or anything. But once you see something that you're interested in, you go through to the council site, that's when you have to register. So if you're interested in tendering and actually putting in a submission, that's when you actually register with the council or with New South Wales Government as necessary. So yeah, just go on to livenorthernrivers.com.au. If you like typing, then it's livenorthernrivers.com.au/tenders, and then you'll see that it's just a one-page summary of the.
So just to add to that for Fliss, in my last newsletter that went out last week, the 16 and Tweed newsletter, there was an article on that with a link. So if you are subscribed to that newsletter, you can click on that link. They also have Jobs Northern Rivers, which is a fantastic, it's kind of like Seek or Indeed, and it's a fantastic way to look for staff in our local area. So both Live Northern Rivers, Jobs Northern Rivers, both of those are in our Succeed and Tweed newsletter. The links are on there. Highly recommend. They're all free. Great way to connect with people. We're very close to Byron Shire and, you know, Kyogle and everywhere else. So realistically, this whole Northern Rivers area is very accessible to us. So I highly recommend to get yourself on there as well.
You can. I only focused on the tenders, but you can also actually create for yourself a free business listing, which gives you access. You know, you can put pictures up. There's a whole page just about your business. So go on there and just look up under the business menu on livenorthernrivers.com.au, and you can add your business, and look at the local tenders. Thanks. Thanks.
Thanks. So that brings us to feedback and questions.
Question here, Evonne.
Yes.
Hi, so I already supply the council in the sustainable ag and waterways, but I've been trying to get a way to tender to the supply of the actual the depot, like for the certificates and the weed sprays and those sorts of things. And I've emailed multiple email addresses and keep getting put back to that portal, which again doesn't give me any way for a supply chain. It's all about projects and things like that. So what do I need to do to be able to tender to them other departments?
They should. Most of our tenders do go out through the portal.
Yeah.
So we do have some long-standing supply contracts.
Yeah.
Which could be like Blackwoods or something that we might already have that supply for.
So I have already supplied, while I was working for another company, I supplied these departments that I'm trying to get into. And I've already, like we actually had the supply for my oppositional company, and then I've moved companies, and I'm not under any way in the tendering for that, even though I could probably be more successful. I already know what they're paying and I could beat it.
Okay. Yeah, once we've awarded the contract though, we have to stick to it for the term of the contract, and then when they're renewal. Yeah, and then we can't we have to stick to that.
Okay.
But if you want to send an email, what we do, and then we can kind of let you know. Oh, so true. Who have we set that to?
I can show you. I've got them all here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, let's. Yeah. Come and have a chat afterwards.
Thank you.
This is your opportunity while we've got the powers that be down there to ask everything. And also too, if there's anything you want to see changed or anything you'd like to be different, now's the time to kind of go, hey, Tweed Shire Council, not you guys necessarily, you need to work on this. We need to make this different. We need to make this more accessible, or whatever the case may be. So if you have any ideas about how the process could work better for you and your business, by all means, please feel free to share.
So with the Excel spreadsheet sorry, we're going back, what's the chances of it being accurate? Because there's been times where we've checked the plans and then we've checked and we find that there's a bit of a difference with what we see on the plans as opposed to what's on there. So in that situation, like, do we just go off by that, or do we notify the
contact person and let them know they could have generally omitted it from the schedule, and then issue an addendum to that. I always talk you know, don't be afraid to talk to the contact person. If you think there's some problems with the documentation that's gone out. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, another.
No.
So what's I can see the new website. It's so cool how you've got, you can claim everything. It's like a one-stop shop, and you can claim and do everything on the same platform. What's the payment sort of cycle of the Tweed? Is it like the 30-day?
Yeah, most of our contracts are monthly.
Right.
And
it's non-negotiable.
you know, if it's a small contract, then it's more negotiable. We're really mindful of people's cash flow, and you know, if it's a 500K contract and it's going over 12 months, then you know, to do more than monthly claims, it gets a bit onerous on us, and you know, it's a lot more admin. So, but the smaller contracts, you know, and like, you know. But mainly, yeah, you could always ask, and then yeah, we'll let you know how we stand. But it usually is monthly. Yeah.
And one more thing that's come out of our Succeed in Tweed sessions this October Business Month has been the desire for small businesses to be, so when we've got big projects coming on, like the Clary Hill Dam wall raising, the council depot, the Tweed Coast Road widening. We've done some workshops on those over the last 4 weeks. And some of the feedback has been that how do we know who gets the contract? Number one, the big suppliers, the big guys like the CMC, the CBHs and whoever else. How do we get our little local suppliers in front of these big contractors to be onboarded for those projects? So you might be a supplier that isn't big enough necessarily to apply for a tender itself, but you want to supply to the guy who gets the tender. So we're going to work really hard on trying to get some engagement sessions going with those successful contractors for those big upcoming tenders that are coming up and those contracts, to try to engage the local community, the local business community, to supply to them. So we've kind of had a step in the right direction in the last month with you guys all connecting together the different workshops we've had. But we were talking to Troy Green, the GM, about it, just saying it's really important that that our little local businesses have the opportunity to supply to these local projects that are bigger than their scope, but they can still supply on some level. So keep an eye out for that. We're hoping that will happen at some stage, Evonne, you know, just to give the little guy a little bit of a chance to be involved in the big projects as well, even if it's not necessarily direct for council, but in the roundabout sort of way. If we can help facilitate that, that's a really positive step forward as well, I think.
Yeah, and you know, we have a reporting requirement under the legislation, the GIPA register, and we do have that on the council website, but it's a little bit,
it's tricky to find.
yeah, it's a little bit, I can just quickly run you through it. You know, we really feel, we just had this discussion in the office earlier, that we need to, you know, show somewhere on our website recently awarded tenders and who they've gone to help, you know, well, contractors and others, and subcontractors as well, you know, and some of these jobs are big jobs, they're in the millions of dollars. So the depot, for example, is going to be over 30 million. So there's, you know, though that contractor who wins it will be looking for other contractors and subcontractors to do that work. So they don't always have their contractors locked in upon award. Sometimes they do. So, you know, and that's something that we're going to look at. So we're kind of, you know, whether that's another link on this page that you can quickly go in and have a look. Yeah. And then you can contact them on, you know, and so at the moment, all as we've got is, type in GIPA here, it gives you access to information, and it's really quite, getting there is a little bit,
Just up a bit.
yeah, where was it?
Contracts register.
Up a little bit more. Oh, I thought it
So
was
do you think it
down.
would be like a worthwhile exercise for like small to medium enterprise to, you know, not only to see this online, but to actually engage with these people in person in sessions like that? Is that something that you guys would like to see moving forward?
So, so going back, so yeah, you have to quite type in GIPA, scroll down, go to the contracts register here, and then this is kind of, and that's a reporting requirement that we have under legislation, I think 30 days, but you know, that's not often too late. Once a contract's awarded, you kind of need to know when the contract is awarded. So yeah, we're definitely going to look at that while we're rejigging that page, and yeah. So you can kind of see here that kind of information. It has the contract awarded amount, who it went to, which we have to do, but we could simplify this just to say the contractor, who it was awarded to, the amount, and then, yeah.
So then if the amount's on here too, I don't know if you guys can see this, it's very small, so it says the awarded value. Like, could that then be used as a little bit of an indicator for people who were unsuccessful to kind of go, oh, well, my tender was only X amount, but, you know, or it was too much. Is that something you can use as a bit of a comparison tool?
Yeah, you can. And but usually if you've tendered for the job and you were unsuccessful, we do have the awarded amount in the letter. So yeah, so that's what we do, unless it was schedule of rates.
I know it'd be another build, but if the portion of the works, for example, the depot, we've got a works build business.
Yes.
So if we were only interested in doing the initial, you know, groundworks or doing driveways or whatever it might be, building the actual foundations, would there be somewhere on the portal when, if we're sent the depot work, we don't want the full job, but we could put an added note on that tender saying we're interested to tender on part of the business, part of the project. So if the business goes in and they're the big company, they can see interested parties that have lodged the interest to do part of the works. So they've already got a list.
Really good idea.
They've already got a list of locals. So the big guys go in and go, oh, but I wonder who are, then they just put in, I don't know, they guesstimate it. But then if you had registered already, well, we're interested, here we'll put a little tag on our business, like you said, load the business with your logo, your experience and all that. They can go in and have a look, and then they can contact you and say, hey, I saw you're interested in the depot job, would you like to, you know, talk to us about doing that, and put forward a quote that they could include as their part of their big.
So it would be like you'd like to see a section on the website where you could have a look at what we're asking for in the schedules, but you'd like to register your interest to respond to a certain portion. Is that what we would like?
Because you saw that picture,
Yeah.
and like for the dog pound, you had dog kennels or windows and doors. Well, there might be a company that supplies dog kennels, but they don't do windows and doors. So they might just say, our company supplies dog kennels, so we'd be interested in that part.
Yeah, and it's a really good point, something that we don't do, but you wouldn't want to necessarily go in and fill it all in the tender documentation and your prices, because that's, you would have to negotiate with the head contractor who won it. We don't split tenders up, there's too much risk, but it's something that we could incorporate in the document for subcontractors, and we've never done it before. Yeah.
They put in the full price, but then they've got the people that are interested in doing the work prior to them. Because how long is the tender usually put up for us?
At least 3 weeks.
Yeah, 21 days.
So then they've got enough time to contact big locals and work out their price and to be able to load. They would then load full tender.
Yeah, and we'd have to kind of see how we build that into the system.
Yeah,
but I guess anything is possible. But it's a good point, and that will really then give we'd be on board with that. So yeah.
Would it be like what would be useful to you would be maybe not responding to a certain section of the schedules, but maybe just registering your interest as a subcontractor to that tender with your contact details? Yeah.
Yes.
And then the bigger contractors would then have your contact details and could get in contact.
Yeah, and we'd have to look how to do that. But that would be great to be able to implement that.
That's a good,
That
almost works in the same capacity as what I was talking about, as in a more formal context, which is fantastic. So we could build potentially like a registered of interested parties. We can't do this, but we can do X, Y, Z. Here's our details. Yeah, like a subcontractor register list kind of thing.
Yes.
So I've got a turf farm. I want to lay the lawn for the council depot, but I don't want to build the $30 million thing. You know what I mean? But here's my number, my contact details. Mr. Tender, if you're going to go and apply for this, give me a call and I can talk to you about how much my costing is going to be. Because what we want is people, local people, to supply these projects. We don't want old mate Freddie's digger up from Kempsey. We want old mate to use someone in our area to make sure we keep it local. So, but we've got to get you guys in front of these big contractors. We've got to get you seen by them. And if this, doing something like this is the way to do it, I think it's great.
Local area that has to can supply these jobs.
Yeah, that'd be great if you do that, but then I can hear you better.
Can you say that again, Mark? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, so if you had on the portal people that have certain machinery that can supply council have a subcontractor do these jobs, and then you know exactly what they've got. There are things that we have that you guys don't know we've got in the local area, so you are taking machinery out of Queensland or bringing it up from down south, like that. So that would be.
Yeah, okay. I think probably to have it more specific to each tender, if you're interested when you see it come out, I think that'd be really good, because sometimes then you end up with a long list of people from everywhere, and then, you know, they might have got other work and are busy at the time, and then that's when you lose the engagement of the head contractor when he goes back and, you know, oh, we've put you all on a blanket list, I've gone over, but 3 of them are busy. So I think tender by tender basis, I think it would be really
and that's
more
current.
Yeah, then it's current, yeah.
Current. So the problem we have with, and we've kind of been down the track a little bit before in the last 6 months with local businesses in a registry. So for example, we wanted to do a food truck registry of the local food trucks that are in the area. And so the events people were saying to us, oh, where do I find the registered food trucks? So we contemplated having those listed, and we probably still to a certain degree, but their currency expires, and they're, you know, so it becomes a little tricky to have a permanent list. But I think Evonne's absolutely correct. If you can keep your eye out for a tender, or even, you know, to be notified, and then there's something that's appropriate to you, you can then go tender by tender, which I think makes it current and makes it relevant. And I think people are going to be more likely to use it if it's useful for them.
I was going to ask whether the awarded tenders will show up in the new portal. So once it's awarded, it's kind of closed, but then it has the contractor's name.
Yeah, it's a requirement for us to do that. So it will be built into the portal. So Evonne kind of went over the website. So we're going to have a list of the tenders that are pulled through from that portal, and then yes, when the tenders have been awarded, it's just going to show this like simple details, contractor and their contact details, basically. Yeah.
I don't know, last one, but I can't see what the time is. Does anybody have any other questions? No.
Sorry. Oh, I have one. So with the head subcontractor, so say for instance, the one that's been awarded the tender and the little guy underneath them, like, you know how you're talking about you've got your own process and your own policy and try to be fair, like, do they have the same with them? Like, do they have like, oh, we've already used these guys before, we try and look for someone, do they know to like maybe try others?
Well, you know, and that would be, if we had others on the list, just as we just spoke about, would be beneficial then, but no, contractors, they want the best prices to do, you know, so if, you know, some people do use the same trades or the same subcontractors and they've got a relationship with them, but often we find even contractors that we do business with regularly, they do change their subbies quite a fair bit. So yeah, so it would be, if we implemented that and you put a list on, or even once you found out they're awarded and contacted them, you know, still, it would definitely give you some opportunity to win some work. Yeah.
So we've got not to put you on the spot over there, Mr. CMC, but we've got Mr. CMC over here, who is a reasonable sized contractor in the Shire. If we were to, and you guys are doing a lot of roadworks out at Yukon and all that kind of stuff at the moment, if we were to create a list such as this to say, hey, here's our local suppliers, would you, as a reasonable sized contractor, look at that and assess that, or are you more likely to just go with your known people, whether they come from wherever?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good idea because we always want to try and use the local contractors where we can. Most of us are locals. I think if you're registering an expression of interest for a particular tender, that 21-day time frame is probably going to make it a little bit difficult to sort of make contact. But we're putting our request for quotes out as pretty much as soon as the tender comes out. But I do see a lot of value in once we're awarded a particular contract to get a list of people who are interested in certain things, and then sort of go out to those sort of guys and tap into that, because a lot of the time the locals are cheaper, there's more availability, and you know the local conditions and all those sorts of things. So it often is a lot easier. It's our preference anyway. So that really excites me. That's would be really valuable for us. I think post tender, once the contract's awarded, to be able to have a list of people that showed an interest in a particular part. There's so many bits and pieces, and we'll be pricing the depot and Tweed Coast Way and what we've been out there for over 12 months near you guys. So what's current, what prices change really quickly. Diesel's going up and down, all sorts of things. So just to be able to have a register of people that and if you're working for a council, you've got the system set up. It's you've already passed through a few sort of gates to get to that point. So yeah, I do see a lot of value in that. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe then we can have a bit of a two-tier approach. So we can have the initial tender process where we've got the subcontractors who want to say, hey, think of me, put it in, but then after the fact, maybe Tweed Shire Council can facilitate getting together once the contract has been awarded, and then facilitate like a second batch of it, so to speak. And let's see if we can get the smaller guys, and if you haven't already given that work to somebody else. So we could maybe have a bit of a two-tier approach, perhaps, for local business to see how that runs.
Yeah, good.
I'm just mindful of the time. Is there any other final questions we have from anybody? No? Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Evonne and team, for the presentation. Thank you all for turning up. The hail, it was only small outside. It didn't get very big, but we really appreciate you coming out. I'll send some feedback. These guys are really interested in knowing your feedback about procurement. It is a mysterious beast to most of us. So anything, as I said, that these guys can take on board to make the process easier for you to be able to get to that level is going to be really helpful. So any genuine feedback you can provide that's come up today or whatever. We've also got our Succeed in Tweed program. So subscribe to that. We're going to be doing a lot more networking events and trying to get people connected within our Shire, which is really, really important. So please feel free to come along. You'll hear about those along the grapevine as well. But drive safely home. You can go downstairs and then just exit through the left-hand side door there. You don't need a pass to get through there. There's a little green button. If anybody would like to stay behind, a couple of people have something about their own specific tenders they put in, they might want to talk to you guys about. If anybody has any individual circumstances they'd like to talk to these guys about, please feel free to stand back and have a little bit of chat, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thanks, drive safe home.